Hello and welcome back to Lady Jane Books.
Mm.
Today I have the greatest guest star here. It is Sam from Greener Side of Sam, and she brought a guest star,
Great. I thought,
Beetlejuice.
yes. I'm a little obsessed with Beetlejuice.
That's okay. Did you see the new movie yet?
Yes, it was so good. It was just fun.
Nice, nice, nice. And today we are talking about a book that we both read together. It is Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chapman. Sam, we've read a couple of Clay Chapman books together,
We
haven't
have.
we?
I know both of us have read 3 together.
That's right. That's right. I
And
think
he's
you've read
coming out
four,
with a
right?
new one.
And I think you read four of them, right? You've read one more than me. Woo.
But I'm excited for the one he's coming out with. I can't remember. Oh, Open Your Eyes or Wake Up and Open Your Eyes or something like that.
Yeah, it looks so good. I've seen it all over social media and I'm super excited about it. We ended up reading, I think the first one we read together was Ghost Eaters, and we love that one. If you haven't
Mhm.
checked out that live stream, go check it out because it was good. And then we also read together, but I don't think we actually live streamed it. What Kind of Mother? This was his new release, I think, last year. And I remember we read that with you. So Sam was kind enough to read another one with me, Whisper Down the Lane. Um, Sam, you actually read this before me, didn't you? And you kept telling me how much I had to read it.
I know I did. And I was like, this is just I just thought it was as good as Ghost Eaters, and so I was like, "You have to read this," because it was like a mind-bending story.
It
I was
really is.
there were a couple times where my heart rate was just like
Me too. I think whereas Ghost Eaters was definitely more like a spooky kind of like ghostly, like supernatural, like kind of Halloweeny type of horror. This one This one is going to stick with me for a long time. This was some really horrific stuff, in my opinion. What do you think, Sam? Sam?
Oops, sorry. I
That's
I
okay.
realized I didn't have it, open on YouTube as well, and so I was like, "Oh, shoot."
That's
I think
okay.
I'll open it on my phone really quick because, then I can see the comments. There we
Awesome.
go. Okay. Sorry. Okay, what were you saying?
That's okay. I was saying about how when we read Ghost Eaters, this was a little
Mhm.
bit more like of a Halloweeny type of like horror type of like a spooky one, but
Yeah.
this one terrified me. This one I think is going to stay with me for a very long time. What did you think, Sam?
Yeah, I read it a year ago and I was like, it's still staying with me. Like I read it a little bit again to refresh my memory before this live, but I there were certain scenes where I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna ever forget that. And Ghost Teachers was the same way. And I think this was more like a it was the satanic panic, and it was also intermixed with crime and lies, and, I think as a mother,
Mm.
this scared me more. As a human being, I would say this scared me more, but as a mom, this scared me more.
Funny, I think more of like a horror consumer. This one like scared me more because I feel like there's a lot of like literary devices. But I
Mhm.
think as a human, this one scared me more because this one, it's a very like realistic type of horror and something
Mhm.
that's way more, I want to say plausible than something like this.
Mhm.
So yeah, so the story starts out, it's a dual perspective, and it starts out with two characters. There is Sean, who is from the 80s, and he's a 5-year-old boy, I think. And it's also juxtaposed with Richard, who is a school teacher, an art teacher. Sam, how did you think that these two characters interlinked? Like, I didn't know exactly like where this was going, and for
I
the
just
longest time, like I was like, what do these two characters like have in common? Like by any means.
Yeah, well, at first I was like, are these characters related? Like, is Richard, I think the 5-year-old's boy's name is Richard. Is he going to haunt Sean because like these things happened in the past and now things are happening to Sean? And I was like, well, it what happened in the past is kind of repeating what's happening in the present, so it must be like his ghost coming back or something like that, because I thought it was a lot like Ghost
Mm.
Eaters. I went
Yeah.
into this not knowing anything, and I like doing that with, like, especially horror books, because then I can get more surprised. But that's kind of what I thought at the beginning. What did you think?
So I didn't know if like one was like, and I should have known like from the timelines, like that should have been a little bit of a dead giveaway for me, but it just went right over my head. I almost wondered if like they were relatives or something like that, like if Richard
Mm,
was Sean's father or an uncle or something,
mhm.
or like I even thought that they were not even like related by any chance, like this was
Yeah.
just about like something supernatural that was going to happen. So when, the story progressed, I actually got a little bit, like, frustrated because 'cause I'm just like, "All right, where are we going with all this? What's the turnover here?" So, we have some people in the live stream. We have Jason Cross reads books. "Hi, Lady Jane. You have a new background." Yes, I moved. I have a new background. I have a new home. It's a little different. Let me know if you like it or not. This is definitely a different vibe for Lady Jane books, but thank you for noticing. Soothing Sounds. Hi, Jane. Hi, Soothing Sounds. How are you? Ross Games. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. So glad to have you. And Ross Games likes the new background too. Okay. Okay. So,
It's
so yeah,
very, like, dark academia background, and that's what I really
yes,
like.
it's very different. It's very, very different. So, um, this book has a lot of heavy themes, and one of them that kind of starts at the very beginning is this idea of like the satanic panic in the 80s. Sam, were you like aware of like the satanic panic before you read this book, or had you heard of anything about it before?
Honestly, I was not. And so I read it and I was like, "Wow, people are really," like, I don't wanna get too much into the story yet for spoilers, but, when the first part of the story happened and the parents were kind of rallying around this satanic theme, I'm like, "Wow, they're really buying into this." And I didn't realize that in the '80s, it was very much like that satanic panic where people were freaked out about anything that resembled Satanism or
Mm.
something like that. So I it was kind of a surprise for me. I wouldn't say, like, I don't want to say a good surprise because it's like you're reading like, "Oh, I didn't know this was a thing. That's cool." Like, "That's interesting." But it was interesting in a way to learn about it and, see the story unfold that way.
I definitely agree. I had heard about it in media, like movies and things like that
Mhm.
before, and I read a lot of like true crime. So I have
Mm,
heard about like a lot of true crime cases that deal with this, and they're kind of centered around that time frame. But was something I really, really thought was interesting is that there was kind of this underhanded theme of like the satanic panic being the same as like a witch hunt. And so I did kind of notice that a lot of the themes of people kind of like looking at their neighbors kind of funny and kind of being very quick to judge and a very quick to point fingers, and especially people they perceive as like different than themselves or like an
mhm,
outcast, um, was very, very prevalent in this scene. And also the idea of just baseless accusations, like
mhm,
based on absolutely nothing, and yet everyone's kind of like getting carried away with it and the devastating consequences that that can have. So that's something that I really noticed in the story, and I thought the author did very, very well for that.
mhm. And I also wanna talk about how we don't always realize that children know a lot more than we think that they do.
Yeah.
And because there was a lot of heavy theming around children in this book and the things that the children said, to lead the adults to do this witch hunt, it just kind of blew my mind. But I, I've had similar things happen, with people I knew when they were younger where they would just say, like, the craziest stuff, and they didn't mean anything by it, but it just happened, and then you're like, "What?" Because you didn't realize how much the kids were listening, and it also made me wonder, more about, like, Richard's background, like,
Mm,
what happened in his background that would make him deal with subject matter that or bring about subject matter that was so heavy.
mm, absolutely. And I think, I think this also circles back to like the witch hunt idea, and especially I thought of it as kind of like the Salem witch. Think that there's a major theme here of people kind of getting carried away with their imagination, and especially children, and not realizing the devastating effects that that can have. Because as a small child, like a 5-year-old, they may not be able to think of like the larger consequences
Mhm,
of something that they just see as like playtime or
mhm,
imagination or storytelling or stuff like that. And
mhm.
this book definitely talked about the themes about how devastating those can actually be. But I think, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, no, no, you go ahead. I was just saying, yeah, like, I was agreeing.
And Jason Cross reads books, says there's a movie with Emma Watson all about the Satanic Panic. Can't remember the name of the movie right now. I'm gonna blow your mind here, Jason. It is called Regression, and it
Oh,
stars it stars Emma Watson and one of my favorite actors, Ethan Hawke. And I watch that probably every couple of months because I love the acting and the storytelling in that one. So how's that, Jason? Um, but um, yeah, and so I think also this idea of how the investigators were questioning the young boy at the time too during like some of the storytelling really kind of matched this idea of like the Salem witch trials, saying like the specter evidence and things that really no one can prove. And if
mhm,
you really listen to it, it's very, very fantastical, and a logical person probably would see through it right away. Excuse me.
right.
um yeah, and so what did you think about that? Because I think those are some of like the hardest scenes to sit there to listen to, with the investigators leading this questioning.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's like, one, you're dealing with children, and, a lot of the times children make up a lot of things. I don't wanna, like, because obviously awful things happen, but like you said, it
Right.
was this kind of, like, crazy,
It was
fantastical
so fantastical. Yeah,
thing.
it was,
Yeah,
like, almost ridiculous to the point,
yeah,
like,
and
just
and
logic based within the things that he was saying wouldn't necessarily make sense and things like that.
absolutely, and I think what's even crazier to me is that the kids just started going along with it. And maybe it was due to peer pressure, maybe it was just due to, like, this is what everybody else is saying, so it must be true, and it started messing with their heads. But for one thing, the whole story, like, how I know crazy things happen, but, like, just how would that even how would he even get away with it, the person that was being accused?
Right, right.
Like, I feel like somebody would say something.
Someone was, and I think even more so, like, the when it got really deep, when he was like, "Oh, they took us in a school bus at night, and we went to a cemetery, and we did all of these things." It's like someone would have heard something, someone would have seen something,
Right.
and that type of that's what I'm referring to as like this fantastical, like, story that was coming out. It sounded like at the same time about, like, it
Mhm,
sounded like he hadn't really like finished this type of testimony before, the accused was faced and all that stuff. Um, so just stuff like that where it's, you kind of have to like just stare at them blankly and be like, it got this far that we are listening to a story that's fantastical about, they're taking all these kids on a school bus and in the middle of the night without their parents noticing, like the entire class. And it just, that's what I'm
mhm.
meaning, that it was so fantastical that nobody stopped it to before that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know as a mom, like, I sleep with one eye open. There's no way none of those, like, what, 20 parents would have just, like, not heard anything. Like, they said something about, like, opening the windows and taking them in the night. I'm like, "I would have heard that." Like, it just doesn't make sense to me as a parent. But yet, even if the parents had those thoughts like I'm having when I'm reading it, they still believed it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is insane to me. But
Yeah.
at the same time, when I was reading it, I was even like, "Is this true? Is this not true? What's true?" Like, there's gotta be something here that's true. Like,
There's gotta be some seedling here, yeah. But I think also, can we just talk about that? The interrogation tactics absolutely sucked. Like, there were so many leading questions and the badgering, and you can kind of tell on how like the kids corroborated the story because you can totally tell that the investigators were quite literally spoon feeding it to the kids and
yeah,
say, well, Sean said this, did this happen with you? And the kids are just gonna be like, yeah, I guess. And then I think that's how it
right.
got even more fantastical because we saw when the investigators would like when he would start to like get out of steam and like
Mhm.
kind of like stop his story and be a little unsure of like how to continue, they really fed him this story and kind of led him to that, which I think was absolutely horrible.
I'm back. Um, okay, I don't wanna go into details because I feel like it would be way too dark to talk on
Yeah.
the live stream. Like, if you read the book, you'll understand what I'm saying when I
Yeah.
say the part where they say, "This is my body," with
Yeah.
when they, like, when they take the kids in the school buses at night and they go into a graveyard and the "This is my body" part.
And it
Um,
just develops from there, to be honest.
yeah. Yeah, so I felt that that part was very supernatural,
Hmm.
and yet the
Oh, okay.
story itself wasn't supernatural at all, but there were elements like that where I was like, "Is there something supernatural at play here?" But there really wasn't. It
No.
just, like, it messed with your head so much.
And I think something about this is this idea of the power of suggestion and about
Mhm,
how much when you imagine something and you spend so much time ruminating on it, how real it becomes to you, even if it is imagined.
mhm,
So I think that's really, really interesting that was explored in this book. And Jason and I were talking about the movie Regression that
mhm.
deals with very similar phenomenons than Whisper Down the Lane does, and he says it was a very good movie, very creepy elements, and delves into psychology. Yes. And I think to a certain extent, this one does too. Very much so.
Now I'm going to watch it tonight. I'm gonna see if it's on somewhere, and I'm going to watch it.
Good. It's
I
good.
watched The Craft for the first time the other night, and I
Mm,
was like, "Wow, this is a fun movie." Well, not fun, but, like, it was, like, one of those, like, cult classic teen movies
yeah.
back in the '90s, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." Um, but yeah, it made me think of that as well.
I just watched Pearl yesterday.
Oh,
It's a
you did?
good.
I've always wanted to see that.
It's good. I liked it. It's got like vintage vibes, but it's obviously a horror movie. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really dark and
Wa
creepy.
Was it, like, scary? Scary?
Uh, towards the end, yeah. Towards the end, it was a little, like,
Wow.
messed up. There were some, like, really messed up elements to it. It's A24, so, they always kinda
Mhm,
go darker than mainstream media usually does.
mhm.
But I thought it was very good. I thought it was a very good story, so
Yeah, I do like this story kind of combined elements of true crime and, like, the ghostly in that graveyard scene. I'll never be able to forget it. It's just
no,
stained in my head.
no, that it
And I
was a
don't think
lot.
that's a good thing. But
It was a lot. Um, One thing that I think this book does really, really well is the idea of like, can you escape like your biggest mistake or not?
Mm.
And I think both characters kind of they deal with that in separate ways, but I wanted to hear your thoughts, Sam. What do you think about that thought process about this book?
Mm. I don't know if there was ever really an escape. I think it was just, for both characters, it was just kind of pushing down the trauma again. Like, I feel like Sean, I don't think he actually resolved anything. I think
No.
by the end, he just pushed it down again
Yeah, I think
because
you're
I
right.
I think I don't know how you could solve that.
Yeah.
I just there's so much guilt and trauma involved in that sort of lie that, I don't even know how he, like, just moves on at all. Like, because there's kind of sort of a wrapping up at the end, but I never felt like as a reader, like, it was wrapped up for me.
No.
So I'm like, "Is it really wrapped up for the character?" Like,
I think
that's
there it was I think it wasn't really wrapped up for the characters around him too. So
mhm,
as much as like Sean may have gone like a bit of a I don't want to say pass, but as a
mhm,
character a pass, you still have to question like did the characters around him get a pass too? You know what I mean for
uh,
this trauma.
yeah, because you had his I almost think that, I mean, even though things seemed okay at the end, I think, that something like that forever changed his wife and his stepson.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that's why and I think it also this book also teaches a good lesson as well, to remember how much our actions don't just impact us, they impact everybody around us. So it's good to be mindful of, uh, like, if you're gonna say something.
Absolutely.
Make sure it's honest.
But I'm curious. There's a lot of like emphasis about because Sean was so young.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like he was literally, I think he was like 5 years old. About whether or not he should still be like held accountable. You know what I mean?
That's true.
That this
That's
book
true.
poses a very, very intense question about that, in my opinion.
Yeah, because, when you think about it, I can't remember where it is or where it was that I read, but, children don't really get reasoning skills, like, at a higher level until they're about 7. So, the fact that he's 5, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just such a horrible thing, and I couldn't imagine if that, like, happened to one of my children.
Right. Right.
Like, how would you even heal from that? And I do think that the mother's choice for Richard at the beginning was probably the only choice she had
Yeah.
to move on and heal from, because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. She's a very interesting character too. Like I was really intrigued. I think I messaged you thinking like is she going to like a clinic or something like that? Is there like something
Mhm.
going on with her very early on in the story? Um but I think I, I didn't know exactly like what to make of her. What did you first think of the mother figure in here, Sam?
I thought something may have happened with her to make him say that,
Mm,
because why why would he say that if he didn't have something,
right.
like, implanted in his brain before? like something had to had like I I don't know the word for it. I am having a brain
Like
fart.
a catalyst?
Yes, yes. And what happened with the dad exactly? Did
Yeah.
something really bad happen with the dad to make him be like, "Oh, yeah, this is what happened with my teacher," or whatever? Like
But then you also wonder, like, what is, because for me, like, knowing what happens later in the book, is it something that happened with the dad that she's running away from, or is it something with her? Like, and I'm not
right,
even talking about anything like an allegation or anything like that. I'm talking like mental health type of thing. Like,
right,
is it actually her? Is her
right.
like, and then you almost wonder, like, eh, there, you almost kind of wonder, like, if she had reasoning ability in some ways, 'cause,
Mhm,
towards the later end of the book, this really comes into question, and if she had healthy reasoning abilities, would this have all gone as far as it
mhm.
did? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, this was kind of a time where serial killers were a lot
Rampant.
more
Yeah, they
y
were
right.
rampant in
And
the
so
'80s,
I wonder
definitely.
if, there was something in her that was scared and she kind of influenced her son in that way, or the son or, Richard, he saw something maybe he wasn't supposed to see, and
Yeah.
that I don't know. I do like how Clay McLeod Chapman keeps it, um, very vague
Yeah, he does
because
really
he's
well with stuff like
weaving.
that. He's a
Uh,
brilliant author when it comes to that.
he is such a good storyteller, like, I know I don't know where he comes up with these ideas, but because
I don't
honestly,
know.
he sounds like a really well-rounded individual. Like like, I follow his Instagram and I'm like, "Wow, this
Oh, it's
is
very fun. He always has, like, great energy, and he's always going to
um,
events, and yeah,
yeah, but I'm like,
he seems very,
how
like,
did he
lively, like a lively individual, so
like, how did he weave the story to be the way that it was? And the way it unfolded was just like, ugh.
mm. So, do you think the mother had mental health struggles, or do you
Mm,
think that she realized things? That's one question I had at the end of the story, like, did she have these type of, like, mental health issues, or did she piece it together, or could she not, like, figure out what was going on and
mm.
not live with the results?
I think there was probably a little bit of mental health issues,
Mm.
but I think it was more so she pieced together that her son actually did this and she couldn't live with it.
I think she also pieced together that she kind of set it up at that very first conversation.
Mhm.
Instead of waiting for him to answer, she accidentally,
Yep.
yeah, and I think that guilt really tripped her. One thing that I realized, but I didn't at the time, there's this theme of her being an outcast. Like,
Yeah.
even with the babysitter, like, when her son asked, "Well, who's Jezebel? Is your name Jezebel?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" There's this idea that she's not really accepted in the community,
Mhm.
for and I don't know if the reasons why or not. I do wonder what if she was actually going to a job interview at that opening scene, or if
Mhm.
there was something else, or maybe it was like a mental health clinic or
Mhm.
something else even, I don't know. Maybe, like, I don't know. I don't know if it was even a rehab, like, facility or something like that, because she talked about the protesters out front too, and I couldn't really, like, picture
Mhm.
on where she's going, you know what I mean, at that point.
Mhm.
So there seems to be, like, an undercurrent of the mom kind of being on, like, the outskirts of her society as well.
Yeah. I didn't pick up on that. That was really good. Yeah, absolutely.
And then that kind of makes me wonder, like, if she figured that at the end scene, if she's like, "Well, there is no start over from this. There is no
Mhm.
start over from what my son said. There's no start over from the consequences.
Mhm.
Everyone's going to know, like, there's no fresh start for her because of this. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
I
I
mean,
think,
oh, sorry.
yeah,
I was just thinking about how I remember reading it and I was like, what would I do in that situation? And I don't know, I would probably do the same thing because what do you do? Do you just get up in front of everybody and be like, "Sorry, it was a lie." And like you would be ostracized even more. People would never talk to you. You couldn't even live in that town anymore.
she couldn't live anywhere because it was all over national TV. No matter where she went, everyone would know. And
Mhm.
everyone would say, that's the girl with the little boy that accused the teacher, and bad things happen. So, and I think it's interesting that we start the opening scene with her saying, "This is our fresh start. This is like, um, like, it's you and me, like, and it sounds like they've been like bouncing around to city for a
Mhm.
while, kind of like being very nomadic. And I think now, because I think it started to sink in with her in that TV scene when she saw like the cameras and the national TV, and she's realizing like, we are public people now. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's going to know who I am. And I think that when she realized that everything was a lie,
Mhm.
she was like, there is nowhere for me to go. And I don't think she wanted that for her son either, because she knew what it was like to be ostracized.
Mhm.
So I do think part of it's mental health. Definitely, I think that with one of the end scenes, there is no, it can only be a mental health struggle.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think when we look at her story a little bit more closely, there's a setup in these seedlings, kind of setting up what's gonna happen to her.
Yeah, and what also made me realize that she probably pieced it together at the end was the fact that it was the 1980s and the serial killers were, rampant. And so it makes me think that even she was doing a sort of a witch hunt on her own.
Yeah,
I'm just so
yeah,
curious about the dad. I just
yeah,
want to know. We should
yeah.
message the author and be like, just tell
What
us.
happened to the dad? Yeah, that's okay.
Dad, answer our
He'll
question.
probably he'll probably respond too. That's the really cool part about him. He's very
Yeah,
like open on social media, so we gotta find out, Sam.
yeah.
Any final thoughts, Sam?
Um, let's see. Don't read this in the middle of the night. It's one of those books. Don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't do it. Yeah, I was like honestly a 10 out of 10 for me. If I had to rate, or I guess we do 5 stars. It's a 5 star out of 5 star for me. There's no, I mean, like, and I still want to rank the 3 books that we read too.
yes, we have to rank the three books together. I will say for my closing is that definitely check the trigger warnings. This is not a book that's light at all. I know I read a lot of like heavy stuff, but I think this one was probably one of the heaviest ones. Even knowing what we know about the story, some of the scenes are extremely hard to read. So definitely be mindful of that and be cautious if you're sensitive to that type of thing. And this one is definitely more psychologically heavy as well,
Mhm,
because it is a more reality based than some of the other things that we've read. So I think objectively, it's a very good story. It's well written, it's well fleshed out, it's gut wrenching. But for those reasons too, I would definitely caution our viewers and readers for it. So Sam, we need to rate which
okay.
which
Should
is
we
your
go should we go least to most?
yes, yes. How
Okay,
about we hold up which ones we think is gonna be least on
okay.
three? Ready? One,
2,
2, 3. Yes, oh my god, thank goodness. All right, yes, the least one is What Kind of Mother, unfortunately, and this isn't to say this is a bad book. We're not
Right.
saying that at all. It's hard to rate a book when the author is so good. Rating at
Mhm.
least, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means compared to his other works, it doesn't shine as bright. So we actually were supposed to do a live stream about this one, and we couldn't get through it. And then we just decided not to do it because we couldn't get through it. So yeah, I don't even remember a lot
I will
of this
say
one.
at the end, I think its strong suit is it's really gross.
Yes,
Really
I definitely
gross.
think it's really gross.
Um, but the plot itself, it could have been stronger.
Yeah, he has other books that are much stronger with the plot.
Mhm,
Um, I do think that some of the themes are very interesting, but I don't think they're as fleshed out, pun intended,
mhm,
um, as other ones of his books. And I kind of wanted to push a little bit more and be a little bit more clear. And I feel like this one was a lot more vibes rather than plot in and
mhm.
of itself. So that the in last place is What Kind of Mother by Clay McLeod Chapman. And number two, all right,
Okay.
this
Oh, I
is
really wanna know. This was so hard for me to choose, but I had to do it this way. Okay, are you ready?
ready. Three, two, one. Yeah. All right, good. Oh, good, 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 good. Yes.
Perfect, but only by a hair. Only
Yes,
by a
definitely
hair.
by hair. Yeah, I definitely think so. I think this is again a very good story. It's very different than the first place. I'm sorry to spoil it for you, um, but for the reasons that I've already mentioned, it's I think another story is just slightly stronger. And that
Mhm.
first place is obviously three, two, one. Ghost Eaters by Clay John McLeod. This one is like reigning champion. Like I feel like we should read every single one, and then this one will probably still be like the reigning champion.
I know. I'm really interested to see how the next book is going to be because I'm like, all of his books are so. Even the one I read, it's gosh, what is it called? Let me get it.
Oh yeah, you read
It's called
the
The
other one too.
Remake, and that
The
one was
remaking, the
probably
remaking.
like my least favorite out of all of them, but it was still good for a horror story. I could just tell like the tone and the voice was still trying to be like figured out. And
Mhm.
one I think once he hit this one, he had it.
He hit his stride.
I hope
Yeah,
he becomes like Stephen King one day
I think he
because
will.
he's so good. I hope he sees this and he's like, "Yay, this is."
You're like, "Oh, awesome, thank goodness." I almost thought to invite him, but then I chickened out. Because
Oh,
I got intimidated by how cool, like, an author he is, so but maybe next time, maybe we'll read
next
his
one
next
we
one and
should.
we'll invite him. Um, yeah, I totally agree, and I think what's really interesting is that a lot of authors can kinda get a little typecast into, like, their stories, like, they can kind of write the same story 4 different ways.
Mhm,
With, Clay, each one is so different. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, there really isn't even down to, like, some of the themes, like, they are all he never I haven't seen that him, like I have not seen him repeat a theme
mhm.
yet, and each one is just so different. So, I think that's probably one of his strongest suits as well.
Absolutely. I I think what really sold Ghost Eaters for me was that I went into it knowing nothing.
Yeah,
And I think
definitely.
that's the best way to read his books.
Definitely.
Because
Definitely.
if you know something, then it's just not as impactful.
But I think even the crazy part is that even if we know something, like, we know, like, in general
Mhm.
what this was gonna be, you still have no idea. So even when you know, you don't actually know. You know
Yeah,
what I
the
mean?
way he
So
puts together a scene, it's like, ugh. Like, honestly, these books to me are so good in the horror realm that I hope they never become movies.
no, I hope not
I
either. Well,
I
I
hope
hope for
they
his
watch it.
success, but I think definitely, I hear what you're saying, Sam. I hear what you're saying.
Like, I never wanna watch What Kind of Mother. There's a scene in What Kind of Mother, where there's, like, a crab over the kid's face, and I'm like, "Ugh, ugh."
Oh,
And this would scare me to death if this was a movie.
yeah,
I would be crying for weeks.
definitely. And with that, I think we will conclude our discussion of Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chapman. Sam, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's been a while. It's always great to catch up with you.
Thank you for having me.
If anyone wants to see more of your content, where can they find you?
Oh, greener side of Sam in the parentheses. And I'm trying to come back. Life has been really busy because I decided to be crazy and get a second bachelor's degree.
Ooh,
And so
awesome. Good for you.
that's why I've been gone. But I really want to come back and start a series, like a weekly series live where it's called Don't Stop Writing, where you just start writing and the goal is to not stop writing and to not think about it, just get something down. And I guarantee you in an hour you'll have like 1,500 words.
That's awesome.
That's
I
my
love that.
that's my goal anyway, to do it weekly, but I have to figure out when to start it. I'm hoping December because I think I'll stop my semester in December. So,
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, Sam. I love it. I would join in on that.
oh, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much for viewing. This has been a discussion of Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chaplin here at Lady Jane Books. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.